Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at this position. It is white to move and win. So you can pause the video to try to figure out the answer on your own. Okay, so now the most obvious move is to make a forcing move because black is threatening to promote this pawn, as you saw in the thumbnail. So we have to make a forcing move, and that is a check. The only check that we have is knight to e3. The most valid check because this is just a crazy sacrifice. Okay, so now black has two options, either to play king to g1 or king to h1. King to g1, the video ends right here. Rook to f1 checkmate. That's very simple. But after this check, black will play king to h1. Okay, now he's starting to push and try to promote and make a queen. Okay, so we play another check. Now here the king cannot move because the knight is covering the square and he needs to block with the knight. Now, this is the million-dollar question. What will you play in this exact position? Because this is the most important move of the position. Either draws the game or you win the game. For example, you might be thinking about a really sneaky move like knight to g4, waiting for him to play this g2 move, and then you checkmate him with a smothered checkmate. But the problem with that after you move the knight, now he can get away with the king and attacks your rook. And actually, this is drawing. But if you move the rook anywhere else, for example here, you're losing this game because black will be able to promote to a queen. And that's 100% losing. Instead of actually running away from the king, you can play the rook here to f5, f6, or to f7. It doesn't really matter where. And even if you promote it to a queen, you can still draw this game because you can play check. He cannot go anywhere here. He needs to go back. If he played king to h3, that is checkmate in one because the king cannot run away because of the knight. And if he played king to h2, the mistake here for white is to play rook to h6. This is a losing move because of this. It is a discovered check, and that's completely losing for white. So instead, you just play another check with the knight. He moves here, and you just repeat moves. Okay, and after this another check, he can play one more move, but it's still drawing, and that's king to h3. Here you can play this rook to h6 check. King takes here. For example, if you went there trying to defend the queen, you can just play a check. King moves anywhere else. You take the queen. He takes your knight. You take his knight. He attacks you. You need to sacrifice the rook for the pawn. That's very, and the position requires it, and then you can just take this pawn, and that's still a draw. And for example, if you just take here, you just take the queen. He push, for example, it doesn't really matter. This knight will always be, attacked. Even after we take here, and he moved the knight, this is still a draw because you can just take here. And whenever he pushed, you can just move away, you promote, and you just take, and that's still a draw. Okay. So now, the right move here in this position is not to move the knight, it's to move the rook. So you have rook to e1, rook to d1, rook to c1. Which one will you play? Because if you moved anything else, like for example rook to e1 or rook to d1, this is unfortunately a draw. Because as you can see right now here, the knight cannot move, the pawn cannot move, the king cannot move, and this pawn cannot move. The only pawn can move is this one. And then he plays this. If you move the rook, you're gonna lose it. If you move the rook anywhere here, that's going to be stalemate because he cannot move. And if you just move the knight, still a stalemate. The king cannot move, anything cannot move. And if you sacrifice this, that's obviously losing because of this. And you cannot have this check because the knight covers it. Okay, so the only move to win this game is to play rook to c1. Really beautiful move. Now the idea of this, you're kind of forcing black to play this move g2. As you can see, he cannot move anything. Nothing. And the solution here is you have to do something to give him a check. Of course, we cannot go here. That's an obvious losing move. The right move here is to play the beautiful knight to d1 move. The only piece that is allowed to move in this position is the knight. You block your own rook from pinning the knight so that the knight can move away. It doesn't matter where the knight goes. F3, H3, E2 attacking the rook, it doesn't matter. Because the next move will be a double checkmate. That's a really beautiful solution for this puzzle. Thank you for watching.